All right, good morning, and hello, everybody in Tennessee. This is Aaron Duquette, State Director with U.S. Term Limits, coming again with our Meet the Pledge Signers series. We're taking a few minutes to speak with several of our pledge signers from across the state of Tennessee about why they signed the U.S. Term Limits Pledge for term limits on Congress. So this morning we have the company of Patti Bounds, who is running for state office in Tennessee. Patti, you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yes, thank you for having me this morning. I'm Patti Bounds, and I am running for House of Representatives in the state of Tennessee for the state office, District 16. I am a mother, a grandmother of 14 grandchildren. I currently taught for 23 years. I currently serve on our local school board and chaired that board for 2 years, and then decided last year to run for this office to make a difference and be the voice of the people.
Very good. And 2, maybe even 3 months ago, it's been a little while now, actually, sort of at the early start of COVID and all this going on.
Right.
Patti, and I talked on the phone, and Patti signed our pledge of support for the U.S. term limits resolution. And just for those that are kind of unfamiliar with our process here, we support term limits on Congress, and the way that has to happen per the Supreme Court back in a 1995 case is that it has to come through a constitutional amendment for term limits on Congress. And so we push that in Congress. Ted Cruz is a lead sponsor of our amendment proposal in Congress, but we also, to get real teeth behind the issue, we do this through the states. We need the state legislatures in order to convene pursuant to Article 5 in order to propose this amendment for term limits on Congress. So Patti, signed a pledge of support to, if she's elected, she will vote for and co-sponsor that resolution to help see us through. So it's been great to have a lot of bipartisan support in several states for this resolution. So Patti, speak a little bit to why you decided to sign that pledge and why you're such a strong supporter of term limits on Congress.
Well, first, let me say I'm excited to be a part of this movement, and Ted Cruz was actually in Knoxville last week, so I got to be there to hear him speak. I think term limits are essential to moving our government in a direction that the founders intended. I think office holders should be public servants and not career. I don't think the founders ever meant for it to be a career position. So I strongly support this. I think it will help government in a multitude of ways, but I think it will more closely align with what our founders intended.
Yeah, well put, well put. Sometimes there are a few detractors. This is something that's supported by 82% of American voters. In the opposition is only about 9%. So there's just some that hadn't made up their mind or didn't feel like taking a poll that day or something. But that's sometimes, occasionally we'll hear an argument against term limits, typically from politicians that have been in place for a number of years. And they say, well, we'll lose institutional knowledge by having a rotation of office periodically like that. And I kind of take a look at that and go, well, the problem is you're thinking of it in terms of institutional knowledge. This is supposed to be a citizen legislature, not some sort of entrenched, machine. What do you make of that? I mean, they argue that we'll lose experience in there. What do you say to that? So right now we have the most experienced Congress in history.
And they're not doing anything. Well, I do understand that, having served on the school board, and I'm in my second term. Mm-hmm. Interestingly, school board in our area is not term limited, but I don't intend to seek another term as school board. I will have served 8 years if I finish out this term. There is some knowledge to be gained when you first go in, but that's to be expected.
Sure.
Seniority factor there that almost breeds privilege, in my opinion, and the longer you're in, the more powerful you become, but you also become very entrenched, and it's very hard for anybody to run for that office. So people become very discouraged.
Yeah, I'd say that is undeniable, and especially in Congress, that the incumbency advantage is just plain next to insurmountable. There's a 95% re-election rate, and yet Congress's approval rating, hovers around 12%. And in case of a sort of a crisis or an emergency, sometimes it goes up a little bit. Because there's sort of just upheaval going on right now. So recently it went up to about 20%, but still, 20%, like we're on this great, approval tidal wave.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you add that up, right? That we have this higher re-election rate, and yet, I mean, you have a couple different options. You can kind of blame the American people and the voters and just say that they're stupid and they just need to get out there and vote. No, you take a look at the details. They got this whole superstructure built up around longevity.
Exactly.
That you've done the fundraising for the party, you've done the beck and call of others, and with that you get the resources, and it becomes precluding of other people that would be very qualified from all walks of life. We like to say that with institutional knowledge, well, there's knowledge and experience drawn from all. You can learn those things, right?
I totally agree with you. And I think the ability to listen to the people that you represent becomes less the longer you serve. And I think you begin to listen more to the people that surround you, or the people the lobbyists that are in place that you make relationships with, obviously, but they become more of the voice than the actual citizens that you represent. And I think that's one of the things too. But financing is very difficult, when you're running against that whole superstructure, and lobbyists don't want to. I found very quickly, because I'm involved in a primary, and they don't want to put their money towards until they see who they feel like is going to come out of the primary election.
Yep.
But I don't think that holds true. There are some parameters about when they can donate, but I feel like money would have still come in to, that office holder had he still been planning to run for another term. So it is.
No doubt. In Congress, lobbyists donate. Lobby firms, they donate to, or special interests, I should say,
right.
Donate 9 to 1 to incumbents over challengers.
Right.
So well, that tells you something.
I didn't have that statistic, but that's
how it is in Congress.
Yeah, that's kind of what I found to be true. So that's a pretty staggering statistic that you just shared.
Well, it's pretty obvious too. I mean, their own self-interest. What's harder for a lobby firm? To keep starting over with fresh faces and have them rebuild relationships and make a case, or schmoozing for 20 years with the same people and knowing them.
Right.
Clearly, it's having drinks and schmoozing with them than it is actually making a real sell and doing their actual job. So with term limits, actually, you end up flooding the market too with more term limits, because you get former members of Congress that want to be lobbyists inevitably, but there's going to be too many of them for too few lobby firms.
That's a very easy transition, it seems like, sometimes, from office holder to lobbyist.
No doubt. Well, Patti Bounds, thank you so much for taking time. We appreciate your very articulate and passionate support for term limits. Patti's just been a real cheerleader for us when we've talked to her on the phone before, so it's great to have you on video and sharing those with everybody.
I'm very excited about your all's initiative, and I, without a doubt, signed it. There was no having to think about it, and I hope to be able to work with you in the future to make sure that this happens.
Oh yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there.
We'll do this. Okay. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Patti, thank you so much for taking time today, and you guys take care.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now.